All right, today we're jumping into a story that you probably think you know, Joseph in that Egyptian prison. But trust me, hidden inside this ancient story are all these amazing layers of meaning, divine plans, and some seriously brilliant wordplay that tell a much, much bigger story. So just imagine this for a second. You're locked up, you have no idea what your future holds, and the only clue you have about what's coming next is a dream. And we're not talking about just any dream. This is a super cryptic vision that could mean you're about to be saved or you're about to be doomed. Well, that is the exact spot our main characters find themselves in. So let's set the scene. We're in a high-security prison in Egypt. And this isn't just any old jail. This is the dungeon where Pharaoh throws the people who have really, really upset him. And as it happens, two of his top officials have just been checked in as the newest residents. So who are these guys? Well, they're Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and his chief baker. These are people in the king's inner circle, right? The text just says they gave offense, which is pretty vague, but it's gotta be serious. And who's their new cellmate? None other than Joseph, a young Hebrew man who was sold into slavery and is in prison for a crime he didn't even commit.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. One morning, Joseph walks in and finds his two cellmates just completely miserable. And why? Because on the exact same night, they both had these incredibly vivid, powerful dreams, and they have absolutely no clue what they mean. Let's break down these visions, because they're pretty specific. The cupbearer dreams of this vine with 3 branches that just instantly buds, blossoms, and grows ripe grapes. Then he presses those grapes right into Pharaoh's cup. The baker's dream? He's got 3 baskets on his head, packed with pastries for the king, but then these birds just swoop down and start eating the food right out of the top basket. So you've got 2 dreams, full of symbols, but what on earth do they mean? Seeing how upset they are, Joseph steps up, but notice, he doesn't claim to be some kind of magician. Instead, he points them to a higher power. He says, with total confidence, interpretations belong to God. Tell me your dreams. He's making it clear that he's just the messenger here, the one passing along a divine message. And with that, Joseph starts to unpack the whole thing, and wow, he delivers 2 prophecies that could not be more different. One is all about hope and getting your life back. The other is a straight-up death sentence. Joseph's interpretations are sharp and to the point. The 3 branches, the 3 baskets, both mean 3 days. Simple enough. For the cupbearer, he says in 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head, which is basically an idiom for he's going to pardon you, and you'll get your job back. But for the baker, he uses almost the exact same words with a terrifying twist. Pharaoh will lift up your head from upon you. Yeah, that means exactly what it sounds like. Execution. So after dropping this bombshell of good news on the cupbearer, Joseph makes this really simple human request. He just asks him, hey, when you're out and everything's good again, please just remember me. Mention me to Pharaoh so I can get out of here. It's a small favor, but it ends up being a huge deal. It's the only way out Joseph can see. Okay, so that's the story on the surface. Now we're going to peel back the layers. The biblical text can be pretty sparse on the details. But centuries later, the famous commentator Rashi came along and filled in some really fascinating gaps. He tells us what was going on behind the scenes, and it gives us a much deeper feel for the story. So what was this huge offense that landed 2 of the king's top guys in a maximum security prison? According to Rashi, it was, well, almost laughable. Get this. The cupbearer got in trouble because someone found a fly in Pharaoh's wine. And the baker, a tiny pebble in the bread. That's it. These tiny mistakes had life or death stakes. But Rashi says, hold on, this isn't random. It's not just a story about bad luck or a cranky king. He sees the hand of God at work here. He argues the whole situation, the so-called crimes, the prison, the dreams. It was all orchestrated for one single reason. To get these 2 men in front of Joseph so they could eventually help him rise to power. But Rashi spots another clue, something really subtle and brilliant that's hidden right there in the text. It's all about why the baker decided to tell Joseph his dream in the first place. So the text says the baker shared his dream only after he saw how favorably Joseph interpreted the first one. But stop and think about that for a second. How did he know it was favorable? A dream about grapes and branches could mean anything. What made him so sure that the cupbearer just got good news? And here is Rashi's mind-blowing insight. The men didn't just have their own separate dreams. It turns out each man dreamed his own dream, and he dreamed the positive interpretation of the other guy's dream. It's wild, right? So the baker wasn't just taking a guess. He knew the cupbearer's dream was good news because he had already dreamed that happy ending himself.
Okay, so now let's get to the absolute heart of the prophecy, this Hebrew phrase that Joseph uses for both men, Yisa et roshecha. Literally, it means, he will lift up your head. Such a simple phrase, but the way Joseph uses it, it is just an incredible display of linguistic and prophetic genius.
So here's the brilliant part, how one phrase can mean two totally opposite things. For the cupbearer, to lift up your head was like an old saying for being counted, like in a census or a pardon. It meant you're back in. But for the baker, Joseph adds one tiny little preposition, from upon you, and the meaning becomes horrifically literal. Your head will be lifted right off your body. So the interpretations have been delivered. All that's left now is to wait for that third day. Joseph's words and the actual lives of these two men are just hanging in the balance. Is he right? We're about to find out.
The third day comes, and it happens to be Pharaoh's birthday. He throws a big feast, and he starts reviewing the cases of his officials. And just as Joseph predicted, he lifts the head of the chief cupbearer, who gets his job back. And at the same time, he lifts the head of the chief baker, who is taken away and executed. The prophecy comes true down to the very last detail.
And then we get the gut punch of the story. After everything, after Joseph literally gave this man his life back, the one person who could have freed him walks out of that prison and he forgets. Just like that, Joseph's one shot at freedom is completely gone. But one more time, Rashi comes in with a deeper read on this. He says the cupbearer's forgetfulness wasn't just a simple mistake. No, it was a divine lesson for Joseph himself. Because Joseph put his trust in a human, an arrogant official. Instead of putting his full trust in God, he was destined to stay in prison for 2 more years. It's this really powerful lesson about where you place your faith. And that leaves us with this huge question, one that people have been wrestling with for thousands of years. Joseph's story really forces us to ask ourselves, where should we put our trust? In the help we can see from other people, or in the unseen hand of a divine plan? It's a tension that doesn't just define Joseph's life, it's one we all have to navigate in our own.